Hey everybody, it's Sarah. I am posting the video lecture for today, Friday, March 27th, talking about work-life balance. My apologies in advance if you can hear Frozen 2 in the background, but it's keeping the kids occupied while I film this. So before we get into a lot of what we were going to talk about in terms of content today, I wanted to share with you and talk about the updated syllabus. So if you go to our Blackboard page, click on syllabus, it's going to take you to our most up-to-date version. As you can see, I have highlighted the big and pertinent changes to the syllabus in yellow and tried to bold them just to make it a little bit easier to scan the document, pick out what you need to read. Of note, you do not need to practice your persuasive speech in the communication lab. However, if you want to, it is optional. Just let me know and I can put you in touch with a consultant to be able to do that. Additionally, we're going to do the mock interviews at the end of the semester online. What I'll do is I'll put you into groups of 3 and you will record your mock interviews via Zoom and still maintain the kind of essential assignment and assignment structure that we would do if we were doing these face-to-face, but then you'll just send me your recorded Zoom videos through Blackboard, and I'll have a lot more detailed information about how to do that. There is an updated section in the syllabus about the grade policy with regard to pass, no pass grades. So the long and short of it is that in an effort to understand and kind of accommodate students who have had to go through this crazy change this semester with regard to, going from face-to-face to an online-only, interaction, the academic deans at our university decided that they would approve this shift from receiving letter grades to pass, no pass. The default is that you will receive a letter grade for the course. So whatever it is, however you would earn, however many points you earn, just like normal, that is what will give you a letter grade assigned at the end of the class. After final grades have been posted and you can see them, you do have some time though to then make a request to change your official grade from whatever the letter is to either a pass or a no pass. A's, B's, C's, and D's can be changed to a pass. F's are changed to no pass. Now this is an irreversible process, so once you make that request, you can't then go back and change it later. And there are a couple of other things to consider. For example, letter grades do affect your GPA. Pass, no pass does not affect your GPA. Only a passing grade counts towards earned hours for graduation. A passing and then A, B, C, D for letter grades or whatever. But these are hours that can count towards retention. So it's really important, no matter what you decide, if you're considering switching to a pass, no pass, that you contact financial aid. They can help walk you through the financial aid implications. You don't want to get yourself into a situation where you end up losing your financial aid based on switching to a pass, no pass grade. So please just make sure that you consider that. If it is something that you end up wanting to do, there is a link here. It takes you to a Google Doc. You have to fill out that form, 1 per class. So for each class that you decide to switch to pass, no pass, you have to fill out that form. All right, so some other things to notice here are the updated due dates in our course calendar. You'll see, everything's normal, the first half of this was boom, there's all of our online work. A couple of assignments have had due dates shifted just due to, changing the syllabus around and making sure that there are plenty of days and appropriate time slots for viewing lectures, reading the material, and whatnot. So I would make sure that you go through and look over this and you update your calendars accordingly. Primarily, we'll have video lectures for Mondays and Fridays, and then Blackboard or online work to do on Wednesdays. Note that we will still have instructor meetings. I will be sending out a link soon for you to click and schedule an appointment with me to do those instructor meetings. We'll conduct them via Zoom. And unlike last time, it will not be a Google Doc where everybody can write over each other's names. This will be a Google Calendar. You have to click on the time slot you want. It'll send you an email to remind you. So it should be a lot smoother this go round. All right, so that's the syllabus. Please make sure that you look over this, and if you've got questions about it, feel free to let me know. I want to go ahead and start going over our lecture for today, though, which is about work-life balance. And honestly, I really feel like in a lot of ways, this topic is like perfect timing based on everything that's been going on with the COVID-19 crisis. A lot of us are now having to work from home. And so we are faced with this balance, this kind of negotiation of what is work time and what is home time. And I want you to think about this. How are you managing your own work-life balance now that these two spaces are even more blurred than ever? Some of you may have already worked from home. That's great. I work from home part-time as well. But for those of us who have transitioned fully from having a separate office space to using your house for an office, that's a kind of a whole new world in terms of negotiating what that looks like. So what do we mean when we talk about work-life balance? Work-life balance, we can think of this kind of measurement of time between the time that we spend doing work and the time that we spend doing things outside the workplace. A lot of times this emphasis is placed on family, right? The time you spend at work, the time you spend with family, however you define it. But life can mean more than just family. It can be leisure time. It can be time spent with friends. It can be really anything that's not work related. So time with your community members. It's important to think about it a little bit more broadly than just work family, especially if you're not a person who has a traditional type of family right now, because work-life balance is still just as important for you as it is for those of us who are, like me, who have kids or whatever. Kaliev and Broff define work-life balance as the individual perception that work and non-work activities are compatible and promote growth in accordance with an individual's current life priorities. So basically, this is this idea that your work and non-work are both contributing to you achieving the goal that you want to do, right? So let's say you want to advance at work. Well, then maybe both of these things are working together to help you advance. Maybe you want to strengthen a relationship with a partner. Both of your work and non-work activities are helping you achieve that goal. Whatever your own priority is, work-life balance allows you, true work-life balance allows you to meet that goal. Some important concepts to consider when you think about work-life balance is that it inherently kind of suggests that there's two separate spheres. Here's work over here on one side, and here's life or family time or whatever on the other. However, we know that this is not necessarily true, right? A lot of times you've got a blurring of these lines between work and life. For example, you may have really close friendships in the workplace, and that becomes part of your, community and friendly experiences, or how you maintain those relationships with people that you work with. Similarly, many of us come home and work can feel, or your home life can feel like work too. That mountain of laundry I have to do, you guys can't see it right now because it's way off camera, but oh my gosh, that is not a life, like pleasurable life. That's work for me later, right? So this is kind of a blurring in a lot of ways of this sphere of what is work and what is life, your home life or whatever. And so when we talk about work-life balance, some of this is confusing just because the way that we each individually define our work lives and our separate life or our personal lives or whatever, non-work lives, can be a little tricky. A couple of things to help further guide us into understanding what work-life balance looks like. Typically, this involves thinking about your life as maintaining multiple roles. Not only are you an employee or a person who, works somewhere, you also are a person outside of that job. You have roles that you fulfill outside of that: friend, neighbor, community member, whatever, right? And so having this notion of work-life balance inherently recognizes that we each fill multiple roles. The balance part suggests that we're trying to search for equity among or across these multiple roles, that we're not putting too much time into one, or that we're not too heavily weighted in one kind of role versus the others, but we want to try to achieve this kind of equity or balance across all of our different roles. Of course, with that, you should be satisfied with how you are maintaining those roles and how you are able to occupy those roles. So thinking about it, maybe you specifically time-wise, you're dividing up your work and your non-work lives evenly, but you don't feel satisfied because you feel like you're spending too much time at work still. And that's not giving you satisfaction across these multiple roles. And that is another kind of important component here. You also want to make sure that they're equally important, or that the ones that you deem to be more important are given that extra time and attention. So it's part of satisfaction, having a salience. What the things that are the most important can rise to the top and be given the consideration that they need. They also talk about this kind of relationship between conflict and facilitation. So it's not just about engaging in conflict, but how do you then take those kinds of moments of stress and the conflict that occurs between your work and non-work life, and get them to a place where you can actually have some kind of facilitation between the two? Is there a way to balance, or is there a way to take your non-work activities, your non-work life, and bring it into your work life when necessary, and vice versa? Last is to this idea of a perception of control, that you ideally get to dictate what your different roles look like and how they interact with each other. Some people have no problem bringing work home, and that's just part of who they are, and they have the kind of like a messy blur between everything. Some people really want distinct, defined time between work and time between non-work. I was just thinking about this earlier today. So, I always joke about how I'm never theoretically not working. I'm always thinking about stuff that I could be doing. I'm kind of pondering different lecture ideas and materials I'd like to update, different assignments. So I feel this kind of, I live in this weird space of I'm always working, but I also feel like I enjoy my time. It's part of my non-work. This is kind of weird. I don't have real clear distinctions for me. Dustin's very much like able to say, well, I'm doing work now, and now I'm not. I mean, he even bought a separate Go phone, little flip phone that he could have for work, so that whenever he's not at work, he just turns it off. That's it. I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I have email, I have text messages, like I'm available all the time. I can't imagine doing that. But we're each happy with that relationship that we individually have with our work and non-work activities, because we feel like we have the control there, right? Like I have chosen a career that gives me that ability to kind of let things blur the way that I need them to. Dustin has chosen a career that gives him the control to say work time, not work time. So why does all this matter? I'm sitting here talking to you about this, and I feel like many of you could share anecdotes and experiences. I want you to think about this not only from an individual perspective, but also from an organizational perspective. But the chapter does a really nice job of talking about what are the benefits of trying to achieve work-life balance. For individuals, for employees, you get to have a greater control of your working life, right? If you feel like you're in control, it makes you happier. And really taking ownership over maintaining a balance between your work and non-work gives you a greater sense of control. Whenever you have more work-life balance, you also have the time to focus more on life that occurs outside of the workplace. As I tell my students, every semester, I understand that life for you does not only exist in this classroom. Having a balance between work, schoolwork, and life outside of schoolwork is really important because you ultimately have to be able to continue on. As much as I'd love for you to hang out with me forever, ultimately you've got to be able to go off and have your own lives outside of the classroom. And having this kind of balance allows you to focus more on what goes on outside of schoolwork as well. Real balance leads to giving adequate time for problems to be resolved in each area. So if you have problems at home, you can address those during your non-work time. If you have problems at work, you can address that during your work time. And the idea is that you don't cross them together. Of course, I think that's a lot easier said than done, but the idea is that true work-life balance gives you more of an ability to not bring those problems into each other's spheres. For you, you can feel that your company, your organization is committed to you, that they value you, and that in return makes you a loyal employee to them too. Work-life balance also leads to, it's been shown to improve self-esteem for individuals, your health, your confidence, your ability to concentrate. So, sometimes just taking time for yourself, even if you feel like you've got a ton of stuff to do, can actually make you more productive. This is another thing that Dustin and I differ on. Sometimes I'm like, well, I'm just going to go take like a 30-minute nap. He's like, how can you do that? I'm like, if I sleep for 30 minutes and take care of myself for 30 minutes, I'm going to be able to then turn around and be more productive for the rest of my work day instead of just sitting there and struggling to make it through. He doesn't nap anyway, so he's like a robot. He doesn't need sleep. Another individual benefit with a work-life balance is that you tend to have better relationships with your supervisors. If you feel like you're getting the time you need outside the workplace, it's easier to then have a good relationship with your employers because you feel like they value you and in return you value them. Last, another individual benefit to this kind of work-life balance, a true work-life balance, is that you feel more ownership over your time at work. And that can lead to better work product. It can make you, all those positive self-esteem feelings attach themselves to your work as well. And a lot of people put, worth in they put a lot of value in the work that they do. And so this does help. Having a good work-life balance helps with that sense of ownership over your work. It's not just individuals who benefit from this, though. Organizations can benefit from increased work-life balance, too. One is that you can really maximize the amount of labor that's available. If people are refreshed, recharged, they feel like they can achieve a work-life balance, they're going to want to work for that organization and be more productive when they're there. It also reduces cost for the organization because you don't have to spend as much potentially on workers' comp. People may not be as exhausted. They don't have as many accidents in the workplace. You don't have as much of a turnover, so it's less cost for training and hiring new people and severance packages, etc. It really relates to that next one too, that you are retaining good employees. If you've got good work-life balance policies in place, the people who are really good employees for you are going to want to stay there. You develop a reputation too of being a good employer or an employer of choice, which helps you recruit high quality candidates, high quality employees. Work-life balance policies also lower the amount of time that people have to take off work. If you have the time to actually take care of your non-work matters outside the workplace truly, then you don't have to cut into your work time to take care of those things. We already mentioned this with individual benefits, but a lot of times productivity goes up whenever you have more of an emphasis on maintaining a work-life balance, because people are able to work more effectively when they are able to have time for work and have time for not work. You can also attract a broader range of candidates. This specifically, the textbook talked about older and part-time workers, but I really feel like an emphasis on work-life balance attracts millennials. This is something that there's a video link I'll share with you here in a couple of minutes that talks about how millennials value work-life balance in organizations. And that's something that they can be attracted to an organization by the kind of policies they put in place there. Last, it's good to make your employees feel valued. They'll become loyal to you. They want to stay there. They want to work for you. They want to do good work for you. They help spread your positive reputation. And it's just a good thing to do. You know, having a good work-life balance makes your employees feel better. Some strategies for those of you who are trying to achieve work-life balance and you are perhaps not in a position to change company policy. These are some things that you can do for yourself. One is to know your own work style, know what you need. Are you a workaholic? Are you someone who doesn't mind putting in 50 or 60 work hours a week? Are you someone who needs a more flexible schedule? Knowing yourself and kind of having an idea of what career fields are going to benefit you, that are going to lend themselves to your work preferences is really important. Being able to develop some emotional intelligence and release these kind of stress, anger, grief, some of these tougher emotions in healthy ways is key for maintaining that work-life balance. It's very easy to feel burnout if you are not taking care of your mental health. And so recognizing when you're having triggering episodes and then knowing how to release those emotions in a healthy way is very important for you personally achieving some work-life balance. Time management skills, of course, are super important. I think they're important for everything in life, but specifically for really trying to maintain that work-life balance, if you can have a balance between...
Hey, Mommy.
Yes?
Elsa and Anna found their mother and father's ship.
Oh, they're watching Frozen 2 in the other room.
That's where they got killed.
Okay, spoiler alert for Frozen if you haven't seen it. Anyway, you want to practice those time management skills so that you're able to get done what you need to get done in each of those work and non-work times. Something else you can do is leverage technology to your advantage. If you're the kind of person who wants to check email at night so you can get caught up and ahead on the next day, that's great. Use that technology. If you're the kind of person who needs calendar reminders to keep you on task, use it. I would just say be careful of taking that technology too far and letting it open the door for you to always be at work. You should take a vacation if possible. That's easier said than done, of course. But if given time off, take that time off, even if it's a staycation and all you do is hang out at your house and binge watch Netflix and sit in your pajamas. Right now, that sounds kind of awful because that's what we're all doing anyway through this COVID-19, quarantine. But when things get back to normal, taking some vacation time for yourself is a really good way to try to achieve that work-life balance. And then this one I added, I think resisting the urge to work when it's not really necessary. Some of us have this kind of tendency to be like, oh, there's always something else I could do. Oh, I feel like maybe I should be working, or there's this perception that I feel like the boss wants me to put in 50 or 60 hours. If it's not genuinely necessary, it's okay to say no. These are kind of small acts of resistance that communicate that your time is valuable in and outside the workplace. A couple of extra things, extra work, if you will. I did post an article to Blackboard in the supplemental readings. It's just an additional perspective on work-life balance and kind of paints this sort of negative idea, this negative picture of how work-life balance is basically impossible to achieve. I'm not super pessimistic. I like to think of myself as being an optimistic person, but I think it raises some good points about how we conceptualize this work-life, balancing act where, oh yes, ideally we can do it all, and how that in reality is very difficult to achieve. I've also got a couple of videos, one of which talks about how millennials specifically really value workplaces that give them flexibility and emphasis with their time, and another that just kind of breaks down more of the notion of work-life balance. I'll let you watch those in your own because we're really running out of our time here. I'm trying to keep this as short as I can. A few more reminders before we wrap it up. Persuasive speeches are due a week from today. I want you to make sure you're giving yourself plenty of time. If you would like me to give you feedback on your outline and I haven't had a chance to get to it, send me an email. I'll bump it up to the top of my list. It's been very difficult in terms of finding the time to grade right now as I'm getting everything transitioned for the rest of the semester to online work. So please bear with me. I'll try to get those, my feedback to you as quick as I can. A lot of people have asked about presentation aids in the speech though. I have a couple of suggestions for that. My preference is that you would just do something simple for this speech. Make a handout. Have some kind of physical object or print something out that you can literally just hold up to the camera for a minute, or you can email it to me, whatever makes it easier. But not having to mess with extra technology is my suggestion at this point. That being said, if you really want to use a PowerPoint or some other kind of electronic presentation aid, my second suggestion is to have it set up where it is showing on a TV by you or a computer screen, and you can use that just as you might in class and have somebody film you with both of them during the presentation. My last suggestion, which is my least favorite, and I want to make clear by no means what I am telling you you have to do, is to use Zoom to screen share like I'm doing. Now, what I'm doing is fine. You all have seen me in person, and I think I have some experience using Zoom to do this, but I am not looking for how well you can put together a PowerPoint for your presentation. I want to see what you're doing in terms of your body language, your facial expressions, your gestures, your eye contact, all of that stuff for your presentation. As you can see, the box of me in this Zoom window is tiny, right? I can't really see me hardly, and I'm sitting here looking at the computer. I don't want the same thing to happen to you for your presentations. So this is my last case scenario for you, last resort. I don't love it. I would much rather you do one of the other two options because I want to see you when you give your presentation. So that should really cover it for today. If you've got any questions or concerns, let me know. I'm here to help as much as I can, and I've basically been living at my computer with the Zoom window open to try to talk to everybody as much as possible. I've also got my email. I'm responding to them as quick as I can. And of course, our class GroupMe is available for you. Hope you all have a great weekend and are staying safe and sane. I will see you soon.